our sense that we are an island. Our sense that we are an island, independent, self-sufficient individual. So if we check underlying our normal way of thinking, our normal emotions, our normal actions, is this sense. It's good to look and learn to identify that in ourselves, this sense that we have, that we're an island, a self-sufficient individual, independent, self-sufficient individual. I. There's only one I. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, there's lots of them. In fact, everyone is an I. We're not remotely unique. But you know that feeling, especially when we get strong, grasping at ourself, strong pride in ourself, or fear or whatever, there's this I, standing within the ocean of all living beings, like an island, disconnected from others, just thinking only about itself. I'm distinct, yes, so it's correct to say I have a unique identity, but I'm intimately bound up with all living beings. We're going to try and understand what that means and get a feeling for it. Because once we get that feeling that there's no contradiction with thinking I, me, and at the same time thinking and feeling this intimate relationship with all other living beings, a relationship of mutual dependency. So usually we go one way or the other. Like if we think about I, being dependent upon others doesn't come into it. If we think about dependent upon others, which we don't really like to think about much, then our own individuality seems to dissolve. So Geshe says we cannot exist without others, and they in turn are affected by everything we do. I mean, right now it's quite useful to contemplate these things, isn't it? Because we're having to a little bit separate temporarily sometimes, but we cannot live without others. How do you isolate without others? Who creates the conditions for us to live in isolation? Others. It's interesting, you can't even get away from people without their help. We cannot exist without others, and more important, they in turn are affected by everything we do. Okay, Geshe doesn't mess about. He doesn't put in words that you don't need. So let's read this again. They in turn are affected by everything we do. Everything. Everything we do has an impact on the lives of others. So this raises all kinds of questions about social responsibility, doesn't it? How important it is for us to live in such a way that we set an example that others can follow and admire, but also that we act in such a way that's beneficial rather than detrimental towards other living beings. In other words, if we're sane, if our view of ourselves and our situation is in accordance with reality, we're always going to be thinking within the context of our interdependence with others. And whenever we just think about ourselves in isolation, we're out of touch with reality, because that person, that independent person whom we grasp at, does not exist. This is our self-made unicorn. This is our hallucination of ourself that we identify with. We cannot find, as we will see, we will never find such a person. Okay, so now, the idea that it is possible to secure our own welfare while neglecting that of others, or even at the expense of others, is completely unrealistic. How wonderful. So we need to contemplate again and again and again this dependent relationship upon others. That will completely redefine our sense of self, our sense of who we are, and we will then, gradually through this contemplation, we will develop a realistic sense of self. If we act with that sense of self, our actions will definitely be successful.